Okay, today we have a 2004 Honda Accord, and we have a problem where the door lock actuator does not work. So the customer's complaint is that it doesn't work. So the key fob doesn't work at all. I guess it hasn't worked in a long time. We do know that it does have a push button manual lock here, so we can lock it manually. We can unlock it, get in the door. And we can use the door lock switch. Hopefully you can hear that. The switch is operating all the other door locks except for the driver front. So that isolates us to this door and most likely the door lock actuator. But we're going to show you how to get to it and how to diagnose it and make sure that's what it is, and then how to replace it. Okay, so in order to diagnose this part, we need to get to the door lock actuator. And on most cars, the door lock actuator is part of the latch. So if you start taking a mental note, you're going to have to take the door panel off, so you want to look at a few things. The latch is right here. This is what latches against the striker bolt on the door frame, so it holds the door shut. And then when your lock engages, it locks it so it can't open. So we know the latch is here, and the door lock actuator on this car is part of it. It's right inside of here. So a couple other things to take note of. We know that there's a manual lock rod here, so there's either going to be a rod or a cable or something that attaches to the latch. We know there's an interior door handle, and we know there's an exterior door handle, and we know there's cables or rods that also go to the latch to unlatch it so you can open the door. We also know we have a window switch here and a mirror switch and a door lock switch here. So we're going to remove this. We have a light here. And most all door panels, not all of them, but most all the door panels, you're just going to look all the way around the perimeter of the door, and you're going to look for screws or little hidden places to check for screws. A common place is behind the door handle. So if we open this door handle, there is a little tab that we just need to push in, and then we pull out. So that's the little tab. You push it in, and this little plastic piece comes out, and it exposes two Phillips head screws. So we know we're going to remove those. Most vehicles, this little piece here just pulls out. And this one just pulls out. You'll want to check the model that you're on, because some of them, if there's a speaker or something in there, you want to be careful. But these are just held in with this is a push-in lock tab, and that's a slide-in. So we'll remove that. You want to feel all the way around the door, make sure there's no other screw holes. We do have a the pull here, and we have a little piece down here we need to lift up. Just a little piece like that. And there's another Phillips head there. So before I take the Phillips heads off, I'm going to take this window switch out. Now I'm going to take the window switch out just to get the door panel off. Then I'm going to plug the window switch electrical connectors back in so I can use the door lock button to help diagnose this later. So most of these, you'll use a pick or something that doesn't damage the interior. You just want to get underneath the plastic and be careful, but just start prying up. And now your window switch is out. We will want to unhook the electrical connectors. There's usually a tab. It's hard to show you on camera, but there's a little lock tab right here. You push that lock tab in. And the connector comes out. Same thing on this one. Push the lock tab in, and the connector should come out. And you don't really want to pull on the wires. You want to try and pull on the connector if you can. If you can't, Try and pry it up a little bit. And there it goes. So now our window switch is out. One thing on Hondas, this car, the key fob does not work, and we may do a video on figuring that out, but the Honda window switches, depending on the year, most of them have the receiver or the module that controls the keyless entry as part of the window switch. And if you replace the window switch, a lot of times all you got to do is take your old receiver and put it in the new switch. There's an FCC ID on here. This is likely the keyless entry receiver or part of it. So anyway, we'll put that to the side. Now we're ready to remove our screws and start removing the door panel. Okay, the handle's loose. Now most all of these, and a lot of Hondas are like this, there's just going to be those push pin Christmas trees that hold this into the door. So I'm going to start at the bottom and start pulling it out. They make tools to pull this stuff off. I'm going to use a pry bar wrapped in a piece of shop towel so I don't scratch the paint, even though this door panel has been off and on before. But anyway, you want to just wedge your pry bar in there. Once you get one or two of these popped, you can use your hand and get the rest of them popped. And then we want to remember there's a light there, so there's going to be another electrical piece there. We're also going to have this lock rod, and we're going to have some kind of connection to the door handle. So before we yank this off, we want to disconnect those. Okay, so the interior door handle is attached with this cable. The cable's already broken, but this plastic piece is the keeper that holds it in place, and all you do is you can use a tool, or I'll use my finger, maybe, and pop this off, and then it moves out of the way, and then this lifts right out, and that's the cable, and this piece is broken, but that's the cable that hooks to the interior door handle. So that's off. Look down. The only other thing left, and we have a lot of wire, so I can lift it up so you can see it. We have the light here. So this is a twist and pull out, and then this, I might need to get this little plastic keeper. It's just same thing, a push pin. So push the one side in, and that's how that stays in. And with that, we can put the door panel to the side, and now we're inside the door. Okay, so this is the inside of the door. This is a vapor barrier type thing. This is the bracket that the armrest was screwed into. The little screw underneath the armrest behind the window switch. So this you can just peel this off usually, and you don't want to really rip it. This has been removed and put back on before also. So you want to try to not get that on your fingers because you'll get it all over the car. We only need to go back about that far. They make access holes in here so that we can access the door latch. Now one thing here, we do have the window rolled down. Most anytime you go to a repair shop, the repair shop is going to roll the driver front window down. They'll usually leave the key in the ignition with the ignition on and the car in neutral so they can roll the car forward, backward. But in this case, I want to roll this window up so that I can access the door latch and lock actuator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug the window switch back in. I'm going to put the key on. I'm going to roll this window up, and then just as a safety precaution, I'm going to roll the passenger side window down. That way, in case someone shuts this door or something happens and this door shuts and locks or something, I can get in through the window on the other side. So we have our window switch. Now the top one is the mirror switch. I don't really need that one, so I'm going to leave that unplugged. Now I'm going to leave this window switch detached because I want to use the lock button to test our, really what's happening is we're pretty sure the switch is okay because it works all the other locks. And by the way, on Hondas, on most Hondas, you can program how the window lock switch works. There's a couple different ways. You can have it, I believe, lock when you get to a certain speed. It'll lock all the doors. You can actually change how you want this. If you read in your owner's manual, you hold this button down, or there's a sequence to follow to change the functionality of this, but I'm leaving it how the customer has it. So anyway, now we need to get to the electrical connector, and I'm going to show you a wiring schematic, and I'm going to show you what I'm looking for in here to get to be able to test this actuator. Okay, so there is a channel that runs along here that blocks this latch. I was hoping to not remove it, but I do. It's the channel for the window glass. So it's a 10 millimeter here and a Phillips head here. So pop this off. Okay, then we have, so I took this screw loose. This is for the manual lock rod. And then we also have the cable going up here for the interior door handle. And it's just held in with a plastic push pin. So if you take a pair of pliers, you're going to go behind the door and squeeze the push pin. It's the same as all these other ones. It's just you squeeze it to release it. And that's it. You just squeeze the tab together to release it. Now this is loose. We'll feed it through here. We want to be really careful. This car is 13 years old. This is all plastic. It all gets brittle. So we want to be careful with that. So that's out. This is out. The channel that's inside here is loose. I'm going to hopefully be able to get I probably can't, but I'm going to hopefully get the door lock actuator. Oh, there goes the channel. Okay, the channel slides inside a rubber, the rubber weather strip actually. So I'm going to tuck this up out of the way, this channel, and hopefully not have to take it out all the way. Okay, now we really just have these 3 bolts that hold this latch in. Now, these 3 bolts are usually really tight. It takes a lot of support here. This is, again, what latches every time you shut your door. You know, that's where it latches, so it has to be strong. And keep in mind another thing. A lot of times what causes parts like this to fail is if you pay attention to how everyone closes your door, especially kids, you'll see they slam the back door. And you see inside the door here, we've got window glass. We've got a lot of plastic pieces. The window regulator, which you can't really see it can vibrate inside the door. So every time your door slams, the window can vibrate. That's a lot of times what causes a window regulator to fail. It also stresses this door lock actuator, or door latch. So anyway, I'm going to take these 3 out. I'm going to use regular tools because that's what everyone has. But these 3 screws, you usually take them out with an impact driver. Not an air impact, but it's a little compact Phillips head that fits on here. And you smack it with a hammer, it just turns it a quarter turn to loosen it. What I'm going to use is, these are gear wrench screwdrivers, and I really like them, and there's a lot of brands that do this, but they put a hexed end on here, and if you put a wrench on there, this is 10 millimeter, you can turn it into a ratchet. So I'm going to push nice and strong with all my force into this screw and turn it like that, and it comes out nice and easy. Okay, now the door latch actuator is loose. We are still going to be connected by a couple rods to go to the exterior door handle. So I'm just going to try and get access to those here. Okay. It's going to be really hard to show on camera, but there's a metal rod with a little plastic keeper on it, and I've got to release those. So let me get a flashlight so I can do that. So anywhere there's these little black plastic things, they're service ports. So you can open those up and sometimes you can access what you need to. I might pull the exterior door handle off so you can see the angle, so you can see how the rods connect. So I'm probably going to have to do that. Let's see. Okay, so this is the assembly, and here's the latch portion. So when your door shuts, this goes down and that locks down. And then this, the electrical connectors are plugging into the actuator. So this piece here is the actuator, and that's what we want to test. To get this thing out, you're pretty much working in without being able to see, but all these do is they snap into a metal piece and then a plastic keeper just snaps around it. So you just flip the plastic keeper out, pull this one out. This one's the same way, it's just pointing that way. You flip the plastic keeper out and pull it out. This goes to the door handles, or the exterior door handle, and this goes to the interior door handle. And then this is your manual lock again. So this is what we're after. So next we're going to take you over to the wiring diagram and show you what these wires go to, what happens when you hit the switch, and how to test this. Okay, so we want to diagnose the door lock actuator. We're pretty sure that's what it is. It's a very common part to fail. We know that all the other locks, we know the switch is working, all the other locks, we want to verify the switch is sending the signal to the door lock actuator in the driver front door. If we're getting 12 volts, if we're getting a signal when we hit the switch and the actuator's not moving, then we know the actuator's failed. So just real quick, there's two different connectors on that door lock actuator. Now, most every automotive technician will have some kind of repair manual. Most of them nowadays are online. So we have Mitchell On Demand that we use, and it's a great program. It is subscription based, but if you're going to do a lot of your own diagnosing and work, you can't live without this tool. And it's literally a tool that every professional technician uses this or something like this, because you just don't know every circuit. So anyway, we pulled the wiring schematic up for the door lock actuators, and you can read this, or really we want to see what the pins are, what the connectors are, and we see that there is one real important thing, and that is anytime you have a failure, you always check the fuses. So this Honda has a fuse box under the hood. There's also another one under the dashboard. So you want to go through and check all the fuses. Even if it's not your problem, it's good to check all the fuses real quick. Sometimes you'll find a fuse blown that goes to something else that you didn't even know was a problem. And now if a fuse blows, that's evidence. That's evidence that that circuit might have overheated or had too much amperage go through it. That's why the fuse burnt. So anyway, so we're looking at this real quick, and instead of going through this whole schematic, and there's a whole bunch of them, we do know that on all cars nowadays, most all cars now, your switch, or everything goes through a computer. So we do have our switches here: driver's door switch, front passenger door, left rear, rear right door, and we see they go into this block here. This block is a module. It's a control module or a computer, and it's called MICU. And on Hondas, a lot of cars, they're called a body control module. Honda, I forget what MICU stands for. It's basically the control module that's inside the car that runs a lot of the interior components. and your keyless entry system goes through there, all your door locks, your window switches, your trunk switch, your interior dome light, all your stuff inside. And it does talk to the PCM, which is the powertrain control module, the engine control module. So anyway, I am just going to scroll down here until I find the pinouts for the door lock actuators. Here is the driver's door lock actuator at rear of driver door. We know that because that's where the latch is. We know we have two wires coming into one of the connectors. We have yellow and green, it looks like. And now we're going to go find the connector pinout. And door lock actuator drivers. So driver's door lock actuator. And okay, so this is the one connector that has two wires on it. And this one connector, by looking at the wiring schematic, we know this is actually all that is needed to lock and unlock that door lock actuator. The other wires are going to be also talking to the computer, and they're going to be telling it what position it's in. And this door lock actuator, it's going to switch polarity based on which way you need it to go. If you need it to unlock, it's going to give polarity to unlock. If it's locked and needs to be locked, you're going to give it polarity. So I'll show that to you on the car so you can understand it better. But each door lock actuator is the same. There's 1 and 2 wires. One is yellow and black, and that's the lock signal. So when we want to lock, so on number 1, it'll be positive, which will turn green on our little power probe. And if we want to unlock, it's number 2, and that'll turn green. That'll be positive. So it's positive on number 1 to lock, positive on number 2 to unlock. So it just switches the motor one side to the other, is all it does. So now let's go to the car, and really what this is telling us is we're going to test either side, it doesn't matter, of the connector, or both sides really, and we're going to press the switch and we're going to see if we get a signal, and if we do, then we know the connector is good, the wiring is all good to the actuator, and if we're not getting anything to work, then we know the actuator's failed. Okay, so we have our door lock actuator out, and we have the two connectors. This is the connector to actuate the door lock actuator, and it's the same color wires, yellow and green and yellow and black. Those are exactly what it said in the repair manual. That data typically comes from Honda. And so what we're going to do is disconnect this connector. Okay. Now, the window switch here, which has the door lock, you can hear it locking and unlocking the other doors. We're going to see if when we give it the signal, when we press the button, is it sending the proper signal through this connector to actuate this. And you can do it with a voltmeter. You can do it with a bunch of, a test light. You're basically seeing if you have 12 volts. Now, in the rare case, a voltmeter is kind of handy because in the rare case that your battery is bad and you go test this and it says it's 7 volts or something, you know you have a battery problem. But typically you'd have some other symptom to go with that. So the tool I'm using is called a power probe, and this is an older one, but it really tells you, it's always good to know if you have a power or a ground going on. So as you can see, this button, I can give it power. This button, I can give it a ground. It turns green or it turns red. Both of these should be red. I'm sorry, yeah, both of these have power and they're grounded to switch, actually. I said that wrong earlier. So, or no, I'm sorry, that's grounded. Grounded. Yeah, this is grounded. So this is grounded. Now, I'm just using this to test. I'm not going to give it power. That would blow the fuse. That's what I'm doing is I'm putting this inside the connector and I'm seeing it's grounded. Now I'm going to hit the button, and that's the lock. So I'm on number 2, which is unlock. Okay, so right now when I hit unlock, you can see it turn red. It's giving power. It's giving polarity to the unlock side of this actuator. So it is working. Now I'm going to test the other side. I'm going to check this pin here. It's also grounded. Now I'm going to hit the lock button. and it's giving everything power. So it's giving us power to the door lock actuator. So now we're pretty certain this door lock actuator has failed. So now we'll go ahead and replace that. So we have everything out except for this other connector, which we'll undo. And now we have our whole assembly here, which we'll need to go to the bench and take apart because we're just after this door lock actuator here. So we're after this. Before I take this assembly apart, and again, this is the latch with the lock actuator, with the cables and rods. Before I start taking this apart, I do want to make sure we have the correct part. And this is where you definitely want to pay attention to your model and how many doors you have. For instance, on a Honda Accord, they have EX or LX or value package or EX. I'm sure I'm missing one or two of them. But the door lock actuators can be different. And also if it's 2-door or 4-door. If it's a 4-door, you'll need more inputs or outputs because it'll go to the other doors because they share circuits often. So you want to be very careful. So anyway, we ordered this. It's APDTY 857478. That is the front left door lock actuator motor on this particular 2004 Honda Accord 4-door. And this is the part, and we are going to lay it here. And from what we can tell looking at it, it's identical. So it's got the same notches, it's got the same everything, so that should be the correct part. You also want to make sure the pins are the correct pins. So it's got 2 pins and 3 pins, 2 pins and 3 pins. So that's the correct part. So now we're going to start taking this apart. And the other thing you can do is everybody's got a cell phone now, and it's absolutely worth taking a picture of things before you take it apart. This way, if I take a picture of this, if I get confused or mixed up, I can always go back to my image and have a little cheat sheet. So it's always good to do that. Gives you a backup in case you don't remember. We might have to go to lunch and then we come back and forgot everything. So this black piece might not have to come off, but I'll pop it off anyway. You got to be a little careful and forceful at the same time because it is plastic. Okay, I'm going to lay that down there. Then this cover should just slide off. There's a metal tab right there. I'm going to look around. There's a screw there I probably need to take off. Okay, so here's the cover up and out of the way. And we can see here, we want to compare it to the old one so we know what we're working with here. And I have this backwards. It goes like this. So this slides into that little metal bracket. This attaches, it's got a new little plastic keeper. This just has another one of those plastic push pins and then another Phillips head. So I'm going to go ahead and take this plastic keeper off. I usually use my finger. I guess for camera purposes I'll use the... So you just flip that over and then this little barrel comes out and that's how you get that cable released. Then we've got this Phillips head. Wrong size. And before you yank it apart, you just want to pay careful attention that this will be another time to take a picture, actually, before you completely take it apart. And again, the picture's just for reference in case you get confused. And then we should be able to pull this out. And there it goes. It came right out. I'm going to leave it in the same orientation. And again, there's the new part, there's the old part. They look identical. If you laid them on top of each other, they're identical. So we'll put that one aside. We'll snap this one in. And you pull the manual lock rod. I could have showed that to you before on the old one, but it's moving. And there is a gear back here that little plastic arm is inside of that gear. So as we work this, that's what's supposed to be happening when you give it power. So anyway, we'll reassemble this back together. Yeah, so this cable actually, and it's notched, so this cable goes right there in the notch. If I would have left it like this, I would have had trouble later trying to get that to line up. So that's, pictures are worth 1,000 words. So it goes like that, according to my image. And we're good to put it back in the door. Okay, so we're going to start working this back into the door. Have our wires out of the way. I will need to plug those back in, obviously. So this is where it will end up. This will come out here. This rod will connect right there. This rod will also come up and connect right there. So let me plug my electric back in. Now is a good time to test it. So, yep, we're all connected. So, we have success. All right, so now we know the actuator is working, so we can go back into the door. Leave those, don't tighten those until you get everything else connected. And you know, there's foam here to insulate this cable. This cable runs across this sharp metal door. So if this insulation wasn't here, you'd want to put insulation there because it'll chafe the cable, and then the cable will go bad, and then you'll have another problem. So, okay. The biggest pain in the butt is those two rods. So I'm going to go inside the door and get those going. Okay, so that little rod right there, and there's a little plastic keeper. That rod just slides right in, and then the plastic keeper snaps around it. So I'm going to put my hand in there, and you probably won't be able to see it, but I'm going to snap. And that's it. So it's hard to see on the camera, but hopefully that gives you enough so you can see how that works. And that's the inside rod. You can't even see that one, but it's the exact same thing. There's another rod behind there, that other rod, and that one is the same thing. It snaps in and a plastic keeper holds it in place. Okay, so we put our little plastic keepers back. That's our one of our connectors. This black thing snaps right in here, the black plastic thing. Then we got our screw to put in, so I started it. Now we'll tighten it back up, pretty simple. And we have our screw for the manual lock rod. It's got the metal bracket that holds it. We need to put these back in. Then we got the bracket. The window bracket needs to be slid back into place. And again, that was a 10 millimeter. And we just want to look around the door before we install it, make sure all of our push pins are there and that they're not missing or broken. And they're all there. So again, we need to connect the interior door handle to the cable, and we need to hook that light up. And don't forget, feed your wires back up for the window switch. Okay, we got to put our window switch back on. I wear gloves so I don't put my dirty fingerprints on the interior car. And again, we've got the mirror and the window switch. And again, these are all plastic clips. Okay, that's all in. Now we've got our little screws. We got 2 screws here, 1 screw here. Okay. Then we have to tighten these 3 bolts up and put our little cover over here. So now we're going to test it. I'm going to put the key in the ignition, make sure all the windows work, make sure the door lock works. Okay, so we wanted to test all the functions, including the auto up and down, which this window switch has. So the window goes up and down nicely, the door locks and unlocks. The passenger side is making noise, so that one will be bad soon. Otherwise, this job is considered complete. So thanks for watching. Please visit APDTY on YouTube and Facebook and wherever else you can find us. And thank you for watching.